Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Today we're going to be doing a review and 3 different looks with the new Huda Beauty Pretty Grunge eyeshadow palette. So before we get into it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy, and let's get into it. Alright, so this is the new Huda Beauty Pretty Grunge eyeshadow palette. This retails for $69 US or 90 for Canadian. Thank goodness it launched during the Sephora sale. It is available now at Sephora and on her website. So this is made in Italy and has a 24-month shelf life, which is pretty standard for Huda's palettes. This palette describes itself as a smoky, cool toned palette of wearable and versatile shades, including a black eye gloss and sparkly blacks and silvers with finishes that range from matte nudes and multi-chromatic foils. So I found that really interesting, especially when we just had the mini Xenon from Natasha Denona. So clearly smoky looks are what is it for this holiday season. Let's take a quick look at the packaging. So this is really pretty. It's just like a matte black. It's got this raised lettering here. The inner palette, which is standard for her holiday packaging, is just this hard plastic packaging. This one mirrors the box, but the Pretty Grunge is actually in mirrored chrome lettering, which I think is beautiful. This palette is actually super beautiful looking at it in person. I will say this one shade here, Rebel, looks to be the most foiled shade in the palette, and it is very soft. So mine was almost falling out when I got it in the mail. So I just wanted to mention that. I did press it back in. Otherwise, I have not swatched any of these shades. There's definitely a little bit of what looks like condensation on the black eye gloss, but that does not look like a shade I'm going to use very often anyway. But opening this up and looking at the palette, this actually seems a little bit more wearable than I first thought, because over here you do get a really nice mix of mattes and you get a really pretty brown metallic that looks really, really beautiful. And then it goes pretty deep in the center, and then we have some more purpley pink tones on this side. So I think this is really pretty. Let's look at some swatches. I will show you some comparisons at the very end of the video with some other palettes in my collection. Alright, so let's take a look at these swatches. This palette was so much fun to swatch, I will say that. The mattes are coming off very, very creamy. The metallics are very buttery, but as always from Huda, we do have some really interesting textures. I say it every time, she's absolutely the queen of texture, and it doesn't seem like she's let us down on that. So let's look at these. So first of all, the color story, stunning. Absolutely love this actually. And I'm seeing it swatched out, it looks even more wearable than I initially thought. We have Liberty, Heroine, Avant-Garde, Renegade, Brave, Beauty Chaos, Rise Up, Stand Up, Strong AF, which has got a really cool purple silver shift. I think that is going to be beautiful. Then we have Nirvana, Haphazard, Fearless, Hope, Love Anarchy, Maverick, Rebel. This is the one that was really soft and was kind of, and needed to be pressed back into my palette. It was a huge pain to swatch because it is one of those quite messy foiled formulas. I think this is a palette that you're really gonna wanna do your eyes first, just my guess. Then we have Freedom and Grunge, which is that black eye gloss. I'm gonna be fully honest with you, I'm probably not going to use the black eye gloss very often. Okay, so I do just have a bit of concealer and powder on the lids, nothing else. And as I like to do for these reviews, I will do a different look on each eye, and then the third one will be my look of the day. I think for the first look, we're gonna go into these purples. So I'm going to start with Beauty Chaos. And I am expecting quite a bit of pigment, as is typical for Huda. She does have a really nice formula. The formula in her 9 pans is a bit different, but her Italian formula that she releases in her holiday palettes is always so good. That's a really pretty shade. Let's see if we can build on that outer corner a little bit. Oh yeah, that's perfect. Okay, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna dip into Nirvana, focusing this one more on the outer corner. This is a denser brush, so it will give me a little bit more concentrated pigment. Switching back to my other brush, These are blending out really, really well whenever I find I'm getting a little bit more than I intended. Blendability is definitely there. And working with purples can definitely be more challenging, especially these deeper grungy purples. I'm not really taking too much care to perfect what's on the lid because I am going in with shimmers over top. If you're new here, I do always try to make my looks a little bit more on the wearable side. Even when I'm doing a very out there palette, I really do try to go for something wearable. I think that's pretty though. I think she did a good job with those. I am going to go in to haphazard. I am going to try on a brush at first, but if that doesn't work out, I'm just going to go in with a finger. That's not working out too bad. Just going in with a finger to see if I can get a bit more impact. And I do, it's coming off much more actually metallic purple this way. Getting some fallout, but I'm definitely starting to see the grunge come through. I think I want to go in now with Strong AF on a finger. And this one I want toward the inner portion of the lid, not all over. Okay, so I did pop off camera really quickly to do a bit of a winged liner with the shade Renegade, and I didn't want to do it on camera because I'm really bad at winged liner and I absolutely cannot do it on camera. So I'm going to take a little bit of heroin, just a little bit, I don't want too much, and this one is just going to go on the inner corner to kind of give myself a little bit of brightness. But I really like how this look has turned out though. I am going to pop off camera. I will curl my lashes, throw on some mascara, and show you the final look before we go into look number 2. Alright, so here is the finished look number 1, and I'm actually really proud of how it turned out. I'm kind of sad that I will be taking it off very soon. I actually like it. It's definitely darker and grungier for my personal taste, but I love that it puts me out of my comfort zone a little bit. I love that I played with the wing. I think it actually really pulled it together. I am really happy with this. I think that's really pretty. And I think the shade Strong AF with the silver shift, I think that really, really pulled the look together. I'm really happy with the quality of these purples. I do really want to do something with this very foiled shade. So I think I am going to start with Freedom on this side. And this one is going to be the crease shade. I think this is very pretty also. I am glad she released this during the Sephora sale because even though it's not the best sale, I do love when brands do that. I will say if you're a big fan of Huda and you're wanting to grab this palette and maybe you're not a Rouge member, I would honestly wait for her Black Friday sale because her website does the best Black Friday sales. Typically for her sale, everything is between 20 and 60% off. The new releases are of course on the 20, but some of her older palettes, if you had any of those on your mind, some of her complexion products, you can get up to 60% sometimes. But I would say 40 is like the sweet spot where a lot of the older products end up, but that's still really good deal. I do love her Black Friday sale. And their customer service is pretty good also. Last year I ordered a blush and a bronzer and they sent me 2 blushes and they were so good about sending me out a replacement very quickly. Okay, next I'm gonna go in to Brave. That one's very pigmented. So pretty though. I think I might actually go back in with a flat shader, the BK Beauty 203. I'm actually going to put Freedom all over the lid. This look is definitely going to be much softer than the first one. Okay, now I'm going to go back into Brave and really work on that outer corner. Now I'm going to go in to Rebel, and I am going to use a finger. But because this is a very heavily foiled shade, I am just going to warm it up between my fingers really quickly. So now I don't have the flakiness, but I still have the high impact. And I'm just going to bring this all over the lid. That's pretty. That is very pretty. It's definitely pulling like a silver pink, which I think is really cool. Okay, I'm just gonna go back in with my crease brush to clean those edges a little bit. Just to add the tiniest bit more depth, I'm gonna go into Fearless. Also concentrating this one on the outer corner. Just trying to give a little bit more depth. Not that you need it, I really like how this look turned out. Back into that crease brush to diffuse. So the fallout on this one honestly wasn't as bad. You could just go into Rebel and not warm it up and definitely have that more flaky foiled texture, but to me I would rather just keep the sparkle and not make my lids look super textured. So that's just what I like to do when it comes to those foiled shades, because then you can get that high impact shimmer, sparkle, reflect, and you don't make your lids look super textury. Let me pop off camera, pop on some mascara, and I'll show you look number 2, and then we'll get into the final look. Okay, so here is the finished look number 2, and I love it. I actually really like both of these looks. This one definitely very much in my comfort zone. This one out of the comfort zone, but I still really like and don't really want to take off. I really love both of these looks. I think they're super pretty. I love how I was able to get that deep grungy look over here, but also over here I was able to get more of that much softer type of look while still going for those cool tones, but still getting something much softer, a little bit more wearable if that's what you like. And the shade Rebel definitely impressed me in that regard, so I'm really happy with that. Love this look, very me. Let me pop off camera, I'll take off both of these looks, and then we will get into the final look number 3. All right, let's get into the third and final look. I am gonna start with Heroine. I did just go in with some eye primer and set it down with some powder, since this is the look I'll be wearing for the rest of the day. Honestly, I was so sad taking off the last 2 looks because I actually like them both so much. So I definitely will be recreating those for sure. Okay, I think that's it down a nice base. I'm gonna go in to Rise Up. This one's also pretty light. I probably could have used this as just my crease shade. I am having a lot of fun with this palette though, and I feel like even though it's definitely on the grungy side and it's definitely a bit bolder for me, I'm not struggling as much to figure out what I want to do, which I absolutely love that. All right, going into Hope. This will be my outer corner shade. I think I picked up a bit much. That is definitely a very rich chocolatey brown. I love it. Her mattes are really blendable. So while I do play with her other larger palettes throughout the year, I always end up forgetting how much I like her formula. I still think Natasha's formula is the best, but I do think Huda is the absolute queen when it comes to texture. So, I mean, Natasha's pretty good too, but Huda really steps outside of her comfort zone for textures. Next, I'm gonna grab Stand Up with a finger. I think this shade is super beautiful. And it's the creamiest metallic. Oh, that is pretty. It's just very creamy. This one is almost a bit foiled too because of that creamy texture, but I really love it. I am going to take a damp brush and I'm gonna go into Avant-Garde, and I want to, just a little bit, and I want to use this one to kind of mesh Stand Up into that outer corner shade. That's pretty. I do like that. I'm getting a lot of fallout, but I do think that was a good choice. I do kind of want to try a little bit of Maverick. I do want to take this on a brush. I don't want to do too much with it, but I do kind of want to use it for the inner corner just to see. It is a nice inner corner shade, actually. Okay, let me pop off camera. I'm going to clean this up. I got a lot of fallout with this one, and then I'll be right back to share some comparisons and my final thoughts. All right, so here is the finished final look. Of course, this is a very in my comfort zone type of look, so of course I like it. I will say, I think look number 2 might have been my favorite, although I really did like look number 1 as well. I really loved the looks that came out of this palette. This is definitely a deeper, grungier palette. Huda definitely went in with those textures. I think as far as trying these shades, I think I might have tried all but 2. I didn't try this one. I know I'll like it. This is Love Anarchy. I'll definitely like it. It's a cool tone brown. And I didn't mess with the eye gloss. I'm going to be honest with you, when I swatched it out, it really wasn't even that black, and I really didn't like the texture. It's just got way too much slip for me to want to put it on my eyes. For me, that's just a miss. If you have ideas on how to use that, maybe as a liner base, maybe, but again, it's just got so much slip. I really don't have use for an eye gloss, honestly. So for me, that shade is a miss. But other than that, I used every single shade in here between the 3 different looks. So I feel like I've got a good feel for this palette, and I'm really impressed so far. The color story is definitely on that grungy side, which seems to be very on trend this year. But I do love that she did mix in some of these lighter tones to work with as well. And you can get some very, very wearable looks. Next, I wanted to look at the palette next to the Alter Ego Mirage palette. So the Mirage palette is supposed to be a dupe for the Huda Beauty Empowered, which was the palette that Huda released for holiday last year. So we can see there's not a ton of similarities. This one definitely has a lot more warmth to it. You do get some cream shades in here as well, but they're cream shades that I'm actually comfortable with, as opposed to this eye gloss that, yeah, I just don't think I'll have any use for. This kind of reminds me of the eye gloss in the Naughty Nude and in Rose Quartz that kind of looks like a petri dish. It reminds me of that one. Not as gross looking, but at the same time, I'm just never going to use it. The next palette that we absolutely have to compare this to is the Xenon palette from Natasha Denona. So these came out around the same time. Natasha's came out a little bit sooner, and they are both being praised for being grungy, cool tone palettes. And honestly, Natasha really, really went for it for these cool tones. I would say the Huda is a little bit more grungy, but the Natasha is just a lot more gray. So it really depends what you like. I really like both of these palettes. They both pull me out of my comfort zone. They both push me into those grungier looks. But in all honesty, comparing the color stories, I do like Huda's better. I just find with the Xenon, you really don't get a ton of range. It's always going to be something black and gray and white. I do think she did a great job on textures and different things like that, and I think this palette is really pretty. But I like this one more because you can play with those more silver shades. Like Maverick here is really, really pretty, but you can also go for those purples. I got a pink look out of this palette. So I think this one gives you a lot more range, and I just really enjoy playing with this palette in comparison with the Xenon. The next palette I thought about was the Natasha Denona My Dream, because it's also a little bit on the grungy side. It's got some of these cool tone browns, it's got some of these purples. It does have a few warmer pops, and I do think there are some similarities. I think the Huda palette definitely does end up being a lot more cool tone. So there's definitely similarities here. I don't think they're identical, but there's definitely similarities. The last palette I wanted to look at is the I Need a Nude from Natasha. So there is definitely going to be differences. These are not going to be exact dupes, but they both have those peachy, pinky mattes. They both have that deep chocolatey brown. They have a lot of those mid-tone browns that pull a little bit cooler. Obviously with the Huda palette you can get more purple and pink if you want to, but I just thought there was definitely some similarities there. Aside from the pinks and purples, I feel like the mattes are quite similar and some of the shimmers as well, so I thought that was interesting. So I think Huda did a really good job with this one. My only thing is this eye gloss, because I'm personally never going to use this. I don't know a lot of people who would, but otherwise, I love this palette. I really, really do. Honestly, when I first saw Pretty Grunge and I saw the color story, I thought, I definitely want to pick this up. I definitely want to review it, but I don't know that this is one that I would necessarily want to wear all the time. Much like the Xenon palette from Natasha, I was very much thinking, okay, it's out of my comfort zone, definitely a little bit grungy. I want to pick it up, I want to review it, it will add to my collection, but I don't think it's going to be one that I get a ton of use out of. And I think I was very wrong when it comes to this palette. This one I can actually see myself digging out quite a bit, especially for that pink look. This brown totally works for me. The pink look number 2, I can definitely see myself creating that one again and again and again. Even the purple look, if I was really going in for it, I could definitely see myself going for the purple look. The formula in here is great. Her mattes are her typical quality that is blendable, a little more on the buildable side, but very, very blendable and easy to work with. She did not fail when it came to texture, except for the eye gloss. I just don't see the point. I'm sure there are people that are far more creative than I am who can really make it work. I'm just not that person. So aside from the eye gloss, I think she did such a good job. I love the way this shade here, Strong AF, I love the way it's got that purple to silver shift. I love the way it's duochrome like that. Rebel is a really interesting shade. It is very, very foiled. So if you don't want that overly textured look on the lids, but you love the shine and shade, definitely just warm it up between your fingers before applying it to the lids, and you will get that shine without all that extra texture. Haphazard is really just a deep metallic purple. It looks so cool in the pan, but it's really not anything super special. It's just a metallic deep purple. Stand Up is a really, really creamy shade. I think it looks super pretty. I really, really like it. I have really loved playing with this palette. I've had the most fun with it today, so I definitely think this one is worth it, especially right now that the sale is on. If you're wanting this one and you're not a Sephora Rouge member, wait for her Black Friday sale. Her website has amazing, amazing deals. So I do recommend this. I think it's fabulous. And again, like I mentioned earlier, I think this is one that, although grungy, it is going to work for a wide variety of skin tones. You can definitely go super, super deep with this. You can scale it back. You can go very neutral. I really like this if it's not obvious. So this one is definitely a hit. This one's going to rank pretty high at the end of the year for me. But that is it for me today. Let me know down below if you're picking this one up. Did you already? What do you think? I love hearing from you guys so, so much. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload at least 3 new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!